The SGPN, the NFL Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Shady Rays. Shady Rays is having their best deal of the year. Go to shadyrays.com and use the code SGPN for 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. We're also brought to you by SGPN's Draft Week. All week long, SGPN has you covered with draft props, mock drafts, and our live NFL Draft Watch Party. So make sure to smash that subscribe button at youtube.com/sportsgamblingpodcast.
I'm just about that action, boss.
You have to be kidding me. That is impossible.
I'm raising the ante. Anybody wants any deal?
Jordan Davis, dog. Jalen Hurts, dog. AJ Brown, dog. How many people want to eat a W tonight?
Welcome into another episode of the NFL Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Ryan McIntyre. I'm Rod Villagomez. And this, of course, is the... We don't play it again. You don't need to play the intro music again. Come on. Oh, yeah, it's the little loop button is there. All right. For those of you watching on YouTube, hi, how's it going, everybody? For those of you listening on the old G podcast, you're like, all right, Rod, get your shit together. I'm getting it. We're getting there. But again, this is the divisional previews for betting purposes. And we're sitting on some pretty big news that we'll talk about here in a second that may shake up the landscape of the entire AFC. This episode, we're covering the AFC South. So Ryan, buddy, big news as we sit here on April the 24th at 2:30 or 2:23 Pacific time, buddy.
Yeah, too bad we don't have J-Mark on this one because he'd be doing victory laps that Aaron Rodgers is no longer a member of the NFC North and the Green Bay Packers. So new era in Green Bay, new era in New York. So, yeah, let's get right into it.
Yeah, so again, Aaron Rodgers is now officially a New York Jet. He will don or shake his Green Bay green for the New York Jets' green, and definitely not changing his wardrobe all that much other than the fact that instead of GB, it will be NY. So, look, they're sending over a bunch of draft picks. I don't want to get into the minutia of what the Jets get and what the Packers get in return. Just suffice it to say that the Jets gave up quite a bit for the right to now have Aaron Rodgers on their team. We're not here to debate who won, who lost, or any of that stuff. Obviously, we just want to talk about what really the impact is going to be going forward, because now, obviously, Green Bay loses their star, right? Their quarterback, the guy that's got them all the success they've had over the years. And now the Jets get, I don't know, do they get Brett Favre? Do they get, I don't want to say the shell of a former quarterback? Like what happens now in the Aaron Rodgers saga?
I think that the Jets are probably going to be a playoff team. I mean, last year they were right in the mix of things down to the end, but just couldn't get any quarterback play. Zach Wilson wasn't good. Mike White wasn't good. They just lacked consistency at the quarterback position. Their defense was a top 5 to top 10 unit all year long. Breece Hall, when he went down, that really hurt. I think he went down week 6 or 7. So get him back. They got Garrett Wilson on the outside to bring over Aaron Lazard as well. So it's a lot of optimism, we should say, in the Big Apple right now with the New York Football Jets. So, Aaron Rodgers comes in. I think he instantly puts them in the AFC East stakes with the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins at the top. And, I don't think that they're as good as Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Buffalo, but I think they have a chance in the AFC East.
Well, if nothing else, it does put the Jets on the same level for the most part as those upper end quarterbacks, obviously. Like that's now that they have no excuse in that department. Now they have Aaron Rodgers, who, say what you will about where he's at in his career. Obviously, he's still one of the top quarterbacks, an MVP, not that far removed. So, again, you have young weapons around this talented veteran who could very well. And I love the quote from Zach Wilson, who said he was going to give Aaron Rodgers hell every day in training camp. And Ryan and I were just talking about this before we jumped on the air. It's not as if you brought Aaron Rodgers in to, one, back up, like you said, Ryan, or two to even compete for the job. Like, I don't know what kind of hell you're going to give him, Zach. Like, I don't know if you're going to walk in every day and just like hand him an old man pill or Geritol or whatever. Like, that kind of razzing maybe is all you can get away with. But as far as trying to pressure him for his job, yeah, I don't see that quite so much.
No chance. But you know what? This could be good for Zach Wilson. Maybe they trade him. He gets a new change of scenery, get him out of New York. I mean, we saw Brett Favre, same guy in Green Bay, 16 years ago, do this 17 years ago, where he left a Green Bay team and went over to the Jets, and they had a lot of hype on that team too. So it's going to be the same thing with the Jets. I think Rodgers has more in the tank than Favre did at the time at the end. So I do think that Rodgers is playing at a higher level. So, but the hype is going to be at an all-time high, especially in New York, the biggest city in the world. The lights are a little brighter there, so it's going to be fun. They will definitely be in the headlines, whether it's for the good or bad in New York.
I'm curious, really honestly now, because obviously in Green Bay, you're revered, you're loved. The culture there is so much more different as far as football is concerned versus New York, where now he's going to be in the spotlight every single. I mean, he already was in Green Bay, obviously, but the New York spotlight, just like you said, is a lot different than the Green Bay spotlight. So can he hold up to the pressure of being in a New York sports environment? Like, is he to the point now where he's old enough to where he doesn't care? Or is this going to wear down him? Because they dig a lot farther into personal life. They dig a lot farther into everything, the criticisms. Everything is more intense in New York when it comes to sports. I wonder if Aaron Rodgers is up for the scrutiny.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. New York, they're gonna dig it. That media is ruthless, and you know what? But you know what? If you win and you play well, they will pat you on the back and they will build a statue after you in New York. So, but you're right. If it goes south, just a little bit of adversity early on, it'll be interesting to see how the media handles a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who can be, what's the right word? Prickly. Maybe is the right word. He doesn't put up with a lot of shit from the media. So it's going to be an interesting relationship dynamic between Rodgers and the media, especially the New York media.
Well, that's for sure. One thing that is the same, though, between both of those is that they don't need a whole lot of opportunities to wear sunglasses because it snows quite a bit in New York. But for those of you like me out in sunny California, you need your protection from the sun. And the only way you're going to get that is by our friends at Shady Rays, because they got you covered from the sun to the slopes with premium polarized shades, customizable snow goggles. Well, maybe they'll need the snow goggles out there in New York. Who knows? And so much more. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers worldwide class products just as good as any expensive pair that we've ever worn. They get durable frames and extremely clear optics for outdoor adventures. And that's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every single pair of sunglasses that you get is backed by lost or broken replacements. So if you lose your glasses, you break your glasses, doesn't matter if it's second one or day 100, you are going to get them replaced. No questions asked. That's what I love the best. They don't even care how you did it. They're just going to replace it. Even if you bought them, put them on once, and for some reason snapped them, they don't care. They're just going to give you a brand new pair of sunglasses, because they have got your back long after you purchase. And with Shady Rays, you can look good and feel good, because they donated up to 20 million meals now to fight hunger with Feeding America. If you don't love them, exchange them for a brand new pair or return them for free within 30 days. Literally no risk when you shop with Shady Rays. That team has always got your back. So exclusively for you out there, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the year. Go to shadyrays.com. Use the code SGPN for 50% off of 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 200,000 people. 200,000 people is an estimate of how many people I saw within the first 15 seconds of this news breaking, tweeting out exactly breaking news. But unfortunately, it's no longer breaking. We know Aaron Rodgers is going to be a power in the AFC, but we're here to talk about the AFC South, which obviously, again, this could kind of bite into the potential of AFC South teams maybe finding their way into the playoffs over the Jets. Again, maybe what could have been an easy stepping stone heading into it, maybe now gets a little bit tougher. But the AFC West, or AFC South rather, is who we're talking about today. Did I say West?
Yes, but I know what you meant.
You know what
Yeah.
I meant.
You just didn't want to talk about the AFC South. You wanted to talk about the AFC West because you want to talk about Mahomes and Herbert. But hey, we got to talk a little bit about those Jacksonville Jaguars. My 16-1 future last year to win the AFC South. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and again, that we laughed about them all season long. It felt like until they started to turn it around, and then I remember at one point, Ryan, we both kind of looked at each other and said, "I think we have to start taking these Jacksonville Jaguars seriously now," and we did. They finished 9-8. They finished at the top of the charts for the AFC South. But I mean, with the Tennessee Titans at 7-10, the Colts at 4-12, Houston at 3-13, Ryan, we kind of touched on a little bit. It may be theirs again, right?
Yeah, it's amazing what difference a year makes, man. I mean, they were the laughing stock of the league, kind of like the Lions in the NFC. Like these two teams that were both 2-15, 3-14. Get competent coaching, Dan Campbell in the NFC. You bring in Doug Pederson year one with Trevor Lawrence, and they take a huge step. I mean, from 3-14, the laughing stock, to 9-8 in the division. They win a playoff game after falling down 27-0 to the Chargers. And honestly, they gave Kansas City all they could handle in that divisional round.
Yeah, and for a second there, you almost thought this could be the year that Kansas City stumbles against a lesser team. Obviously, that didn't happen, but if for no other reason other than the feel-goodness of Jacksonville finally turning themselves around, and really, I suppose that's what you're going to credit it to, because it's not as if anybody was really cheering for Jacksonville other than the feel-good story of it all. Because, when you see the guys that are the punting stones of the league year in and year out, when they start to succeed, it's good. It's good to see. It's actually like, oh, finally, okay, the Jacksonville Jaguars, we don't have to laugh at them anymore. And now you're sitting there thinking to yourself, okay, the Colts and the Texans are now the bottom of this league, or this division rather. And now who's going to be the next story in 5 or 6 years after plenty of chances at number 1 overall picks or really high draft picks to build a better team, and that's what we're after now. We're trying to see, we're now seeing what happens when you put enough number 1 picks together in one team. Can you build a better team than you had the year before?
Yeah, and the number 1 pick of number 1 picks, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he really turned it on in the second half. That bye week came at the perfect time. They had stuttered. They lost a bad game to Denver. I think it was in Germany, if I'm not mistaken correctly. So, or no, it wasn't in Germany. It was in London. There was another game in Germany, but they fell to, it was 2-7, and they really had to get things in gear and run the table to get in the playoffs, and they just did exactly that. Won 7 out of 9 coming down the stretch, and like you said, they gave Kansas City everything they could handle in that divisional round.
They did. And listen, so when you talk about divisional rounds, you talk about playoffs, obviously the only team that I would think that we would even consider, and we'll talk about it later as far as their odds to make it and all that other good stuff, but I think the only team that you fear out of this division at all is Jacksonville, even to make the playoffs. I'm not seeing any vast improvement out of anybody. I know Tennessee probably right there on the cusp of it, but obviously they've got their own problems that they've got to address this offseason as well, especially over the fact that they finished 7-10 with a team that should not have been 7-10. And obviously, like I said, we'll talk about that when we break them down. But on the whole, in the landscape of the AFC South, again, I think all we need to do is just kind of say this is Jacksonville's to lose, first of all. And second of all, if any team advances to the playoffs out of this, it's got to be Jacksonville. Yeah,
just because they have the best quarterback by far. I don't think it's really close. I mean, Tannehill's a good, decent game manager. Indianapolis and Houston, we don't even know who the starters are right now. They both are picking at the top of the draft for a reason. Indianapolis was a complete and total dumpster fire last year, and we'll touch on them. New coach, Shane Steichen. All they do is bring in these Doug Pederson, Frank Reich guys. Obviously, Sirianni was an assistant for Frank Reich, who was an assistant for Pederson. Now Steichen was an assistant for Sirianni, so they're trying to catch lightning in the bottle once again with the Doug Pederson coaching tree. But a lot of turnover, obviously. Your guy Ryans heads over to Houston, taking over that gig. They got a lot of needs. We'll touch on that here in a minute. But yeah, this division, very young. I think come up and coming. I think that the future is decently bright in this division, but it's headlined by Jacksonville, like you said.
Yeah. Again, just it's such a weird thing to say. Headlined by Jacksonville after 4 or 5 seasons really in a row of just absolute and total cellar dwelling and just
Mhm.
bad stuff. You talk about Doug Pederson. Actually, they probably should give a call to I believe it's the Houston Gamblers that has Doug Peterson's son on as a receiver or tight end or something like that. They may want to get on the horn and bring in a Peterson, actual Peterson on the team and see where it goes from there. That would be something. All right, let's step away for one more break. When we come back, we'll actually start talking odds. We'll start talking about favorites. We'll start talking about who we like in the NFC South. I mean, I think we already covered who we like in the NFC South, or the AFC South rather. But we'll get into it hot and heavy when we come back. Let's talk about Underdog Fantasy because we're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NBA and NHL playoffs are here, and what better way to get down on some player prop parlays than over at Underdog Fantasy? Besides daily NHL, NBA, and MLB games, they've also got NFL best ball drafts with a guaranteed $500,000 in prizes. Go head over to underdogfantasy.com. Use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Part of SGPN's Draft Week. SGPN is holding a free NFL draft props contest exclusively for members of our Discord. As with everything here on the SGPN, it's completely free to join, and the winner gets $250 in cash and a $50 SGPN gift card. Just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord. Go to the NFL channel for the sign-up link. All right, so let's do this. Let's start from the bottom as we usually do of these divisions and work our way up to the top. It starts with the Houston Texans. They are a 100-1 favorite to win the AFC South. They come in at plus 1,000. Last season, we just talked about it. They finished 3-13-1, outscored by a total of 289 points for to 420 points against. They did not win a single game at home, and they were only 3-6 on the road, although they were 3-2-1 within the division. So they may have gotten beat up on, but they got a couple of licks in on their fellow brothers in the AFC South. Ryan, my friend, we talked about it. We don't know who on God's green earth is going to start at quarterback for this team, but they do have a defensive-minded head coach, which should bring some stability back to the defense. I still think they're a couple of years away from being in the conversation, though. I'll tell you that.
Was I muted?
You were muted, buddy.
Yeah, I'll start over again. I didn't realize I muted myself, but yeah, no, this is a mess of a situation. D'Amico Ryans comes over from San Francisco. They got a lot of needs. This is the typical organization where they talk about you need to draft the best player. They need to draft the best player. If it happens to be quarterback, then draft the quarterback. But if you don't believe in a quarterback, don't just draft a quarterback to draft a quarterback. You need a tackle. You need receivers. You need defensive pieces. I anticipate them being better defensively because D'Amico Ryans is coming over from San Francisco. Of course, they do not have the number 1 overall pick because they famously won the final Week 18 game on the 2-point conversion. Lovie Smith's parting gift to the Chicago Bears in his final game with the Texans. So, yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. But I think this organization is going in the right direction. They got rid of Deshaun Watson. They got that haul back for Deshaun Watson, which was good because if I didn't think that they were going to get that much for him, but obviously Cleveland overpaid and then, of course, extended him as well. So getting rid of Deshaun Watson was a win in itself with the offseason distractions. Obviously, they're picking number 2 overall. I've seen rumors that they might trade back. It sounds like Young's going to go number 1. It sounds like they're not in love with C.J. Stroud, though, in the second pick overall, and they may go Will Levis.
Well, and that's what I think a lot of people are thinking. And to be honest with you, I almost don't, because they got another pick later on in the next round. So if you're not in love with one of those top guys, wait. You know, if you really feel like you can wait, they still believe in Davis Mills. I don't know why, but they've still believed in Davis Mills. That's something where they've made their stand on him last season, and he hasn't gone anywhere yet. He does pick up Dalton Schultz now to throw to, which is obviously in Houston. You're used to having some pretty good tight ends. Now they've got that as well. So maybe that helps. Obviously, Robert Woods, now Noah Brown, Nico Collins. It's not a bad little backfield. They got Dameon Pierce still, Devin Singletary now. So that offense is starting to take shape. D'Amico Ryans brings over Jimmy Ward from San Francisco, right? In the secondary. That could help as well. Yeah, it's just a matter of this team now needs to coalesce around somebody, and maybe waiting on a later quarterback is the answer, because there's still going to be people down there when you're going to pick again in the first round.
I agree with you, Rod. I think they should trade down, me personally. I know that that's not the sexy idea, but I just think that this team has so many holes in it, and you're not going to fix this team with one pick. And they're not in love with any of the quarterbacks from all the reports that I read. So there's no reason to reach for one. I think you could trade back 5, 6, 7 picks and maybe get Will Levis, who seems to be the guy that they've targeted, or maybe they want CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson. I think if you trade back, you're able to stockpile some more capital and picks and still get a quarterback.
Yeah, I think
and they picked 12 overall too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
It's not like they're losing out on a whole bunch of opportunities down there as well. And in fact, though, for selfish reasons, I hope they don't pick Will Levis, because I have Anthony Richardson to go higher. So if they're going to pick a quarterback, then let it be Anthony Richardson. I'd rather have that happen. So my prop bet cashes. But no, honestly, yeah, like I said, you hit it too. They need more than a quarterback. So you spend that draft capital on a quarterback and you don't love him, and you're stuck with it. And now you got to figure out, it's a Zach Wilson situation, right? You go after a couple of seasons later after a veteran quarterback that's going to be expensive for you, or what do you do with it? So they definitely have a lot of questions. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know what the answer to is. Will you bet on a futures for the Texans? That is a no. I don't care if it's 100 to 1, 1,000 to 1. I don't feel like that's good enough for me to try to lay any money on.
You know, the only thing is, like, maybe with the Houston Texans or one of these teams that have such a long shot that maybe you could get them early, and maybe they start 3-5 or something where they're in the hunt because this division doesn't get away, and maybe you can hedge out of it. That's the only way. I don't think there's any way that the Texans are going to win this division. So as much as I would love to give out 100 to 1, I will pass on the Houston Texans winning the division. Although I think they will play hard for D'Amico Ryans, and I think you agree as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you watch the San Francisco 49er defense play so tough for that guy. I mean, and they weren't perfect either. They were, giving up long pass interference penalties. They were, you really couldn't trust them sometimes to not allow an offense to sort of drive at the wrong time for the defense. Like, it was not a perfect defense, but you knew every single one of those guys were playing hard, because D'Amico Ryans was not, he believed in them even when they were making mistakes, even when they were giving up big plays. So I think the whole Texans team now has that type of a person cheering for them. And, you want to play hard for a guy like that. So I agree. They'll probably get better. I will talk about their win totals in a little bit, but obviously still think they're another season, or if not 2, away from claiming the top of this AFC South. So I don't know. I mean, listen, again, I want to tell you to bet on this. If you're a diehard Texans fan and you put Texans money on every year, you're going to with or without me telling you to do it. So I'm just saying I'll probably stay away. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've been wrong before.
And they're 10 to 1. I don't know why I said 100 to 1.
Because I did. Because I can't read.
Yeah.
They're plus 1,000.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, 100 to 1. I need to get in on that, even if it's not going to happen. But yeah, no, 10 to 1 still. Yes, very, very juicy, but there's a reason why they're 10 to 1. They're going to struggle to win some games again in Houston.
Yeah, I can see the trolls now. Rod's making up stats again. He's making up lines. Yeah, sorry. I was on the road for about 2.5 hours today. My brain's not wrapping itself around plus 1,000 like it should. But this one's not hard. It's 5 to 1. It's the Indianapolis Colts. They come in at plus 500 to win the AFC South. Again, they finished at 4-12-1 last season. They scored 289 points as well. Gave up 427. They were 2-6 at home, 2-6-1 on the road, but they were not as good in the division as were the other teams. They were 1-4-1 in the division. The Colts, again, they're a team in absolute flux right now, and they need more than just a Band-Aid to fix what's going on with them. They definitely need to figure out a strategy for the long run. Gardner Minshew and Nick Foles still listed as quarterbacks. Sam Ellinger is also on that depth chart as well. So, I mean, Indy, you feeling anything for Indy?
No. What a difference a year makes with this franchise. They were like the consensus pick to win the division last year. Matt Ryan coming over from Atlanta. It was the best guy they had, quote from Jim Irsay, the best guy they had in their building since Peyton Manning. So talk about a bad take. Yeah, no, they were awful last year. I mean, completely 4-13, and they probably were lucky to even win 4 games. The quarterback carousel was a joke, from Matt Ryan to Ellinger to Nick Foles, and then the midseason firing, bringing Jeff Saturday from Get Up over to coach the team, firing a good coach in Frank Reich. They were a joke last year, just from management side of things. So, no, I don't. I kind of view this situation similar to Arizona in the NFC West. Just complete joke on and off the field, completely run. So, yes, new coach coming in from Philadelphia, Shane Steichen. Good luck to him. Both the Philly coordinators got tough gigs here with Arizona and Indianapolis coming over from that Super Bowl appearance. So, yeah, it sounds like they're going to take quarterback in the opening round, but I think it's another team that's got a lot of holes more than just quarterback.
Well, and like I said, so I did a shameless plug. I did a draft prop article over on the website, sportsgamblingpodcast.com. Go check it out. But I do feel as if this is a spot where Anthony Richardson could go to the Colts. Jim Irsay has been kind of hinting that he may do this, he may not. Like, it's people are frustrated trying to figure out what he's going to do with that 4th pick of the draft. And in fact, he's not really tipping his hand very much. But it feels as if he should take a quarterback here, because Gardner Minshew, I'm sorry, love the man, not the answer at your starting quarterback. And if you're going to pick a quarterback to throw in right away, a lot of people are saying that Anderson's that guy, or Richardson, sorry, is going to be that guy to jump in and to be that guy. So, this feels like a spot for them to maybe start building around a young quarterback.
And I think it's pretty consensus that Richardson, yes, he probably has the lowest floor, but he has the highest ceiling as well. So I think either team, it wouldn't be a bad take. I mean, anytime you got a chance to take a guy that's got the highest ceiling in the draft, not number 1 overall, I think it's worth a shot, because you just don't know with Anthony Richardson. If he does pan out, you have your franchise quarterback for the next 15 years. So, yeah, I think I would take a Richardson over Stroud and Levis as well.
Well, you think about what he'd have in his arsenal too. You got Jonathan Taylor still, who's arguably still one of the better running backs in the entire league. You've got young receivers. You've got Michael Pittman in there as well. Isaiah McKenzie from Buffalo, obviously a good guy that got buried under guys like Stephon Diggs, right? So he's a good talent in and of his own right. So, I mean, yeah, this might be a good landing spot for him, but I still, again, much like the Texans, don't trust the Colts to make the improvements to catapult them above a pretty stout Jacksonville Jaguar team right now.
Yeah, they top to bottom roster wise, they are not in the same league as the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is crazy to say just what the whole difference a year makes. It'll be interesting to see how going from Frank Reich to Shane Steichen, how that transitions. Their offensive line's gotten old quick in Indianapolis, their defense as well. They still have Pittman Jr. and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield, but they got a lot of holes on this team, man.
You think they want Jeff Saturday back under center? Is that I mean, at center?
Yeah. That should have came with the coaching gig, is that they got that they want him to play as well.
Little player coach action going on. Like in the old days of baseball. All right. Well, this team would probably be the only one that I feel like could make a run at the Jaguars this year. And that, of course, is the Tennessee Titans. They come in at plus 350 to win the AFC South. And I mean, it wasn't that long ago that they were the top team in the division, and it wasn't even close. like we're talking about with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously Tannehill, obviously Henry in the backfield, and just the wealth of talent that they had on both sides of the ball. But I think we're starting to see a crack in it, or maybe the teams in the division or teams in the AFC were building around defending Henry because it began to really feel like he was the only weapon to fear in Tennessee. So I don't know what's your prognosis of the Titans over the last couple of seasons?
I think they really missed A.J. Brown last year. I think it was safe to say that. Yeah, Treylon Burks, he's got a high upside with the draft pick they had last year, but they've also gotten old on the defensive end, in my opinion, and their offensive line has suffered a lot of injuries over the last couple of years, which I think has made King Henry drop a little bit in his production, and he's got a lot of miles on those tires. Yes, he is an animal. He still is a king. A lot of rumors that they might try and move him at the draft is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I don't know about that, though. I don't know if that would be wise. I know that you would probably get a decent amount back, but if you're Tennessee, why let the best player you've got on the field go unless you're in utter rebuild mode, and you end up taking a quarterback to try to just, hedge your losses and or go to Malik Willis next season and go all in on him and kind of let Tannehill back up and kind of slowly work his way out of the league. But I don't know why you would let Henry go at this point.
And it was wild with Tennessee last year because they were 7-3 and they were sitting pretty once again, coming off the 1 seed the previous year. Then they got banged up. Tannehill was in and out of the lineup. Dobbs had to play. Wills had to play. And they just weren't even close with those guys without Tannehill. So it'll be interesting. This feels like the last year, maybe the last stand, as they call it, for Tannehill in Tennessee. And maybe if they tank this year, they go young with the quarterback next year in the draft. But I still think with Vrabel coaching this team, Tannehill, a healthy Tannehill, and then King Henry, and then a decent defense, I think that they can stay around that 500 mark and have a chance to get back to the playoffs.
What they need, though, is weapons for Tannehill to throw to when he doesn't hand the ball off to Derrick Henry. And again, with you said it, A.J. Brown being gone last season, that just exposed the fact that all you were left with was Nick Westbrook-Akine, Treylon Burks, those kind of guys that they're not standouts. And I understand that on a run first team like Tennessee has tried to make themselves and has successfully for a while now, you don't need like a gigantic, and that's why they felt like they could move on from AJ because they thought, well, we got Derrick Henry. We don't need an expensive wide receiver when we can try to build up around what we have. Well, that doesn't work. And I even think in Baltimore, it shows itself as well, because you need a pass catcher in Baltimore when you do want to throw the ball that's going to be able to catch the ball. And those guys were not able to really get it done to the level that we were accustomed to seeing A.J. Brown do.
Yeah, and you lose weapons around Tannehill, but then you also lose key offensive linemen to free agency in the last couple of years, and then also injuries. Their offensive line was completely banged up, 3-4 starters down coming down the stretch last year. So they need to stay healthy on the offensive line to give King Henry, but most importantly, give Tannehill a shot to stay healthy and distribute the ball where it needs to be distributed.
So they're at plus 350. Like I said, if I was to speculate on anybody other than the Jaguars in this, I think that the Titans would be it. 350 seems about right, about competitive when you look around to some of the other gaps between first and second. Even just looking up to the NFC East, where the Eagles are at plus 115 and the Cowboys are at plus 175, it's still a decent enough gap. AFC West, the Chiefs are minus 150, Chargers are at plus 330. So it seems to be that that's sort of the line in the sand for some of these divisions as well, when you're talking about a clear favorite versus the second in line. So like I said, Tennessee feels like that's about right for them at plus 350. I wouldn't mind stabbing at that, only because, again, if Tannehill does figure that this is his last stand, or that he needs this one season to impress, right, and goes all out and does fantastical things, they get another pass catcher in the draft maybe, or trade for a good pass catcher, and then Derrick Henry does Derrick Henry things all season long, this could be the team if Jacksonville implodes and doesn't keep the success that they had last season, that I think could take the throne.
Yeah, if you had to pick one, but I still just don't see it. Jacksonville quarterback wise is just on a different level than Tennessee, so I'm going to stay away from it. I think if Tennessee is to back their way into the playoffs, it would be a 7 seed. But I don't see them competing with Jacksonville in year 2 of the Doug Pederson era.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. The books kind of feel the same way too, because they put them, like I said, a plus 350, where the Jacksonville Jaguars are clear and present favorites at minus 150 to win the AFC South. Just to kind of put this in perspective for you, okay? Jacksonville is at minus 150 to win the AFC South. Like I said, Tennessee is at plus 350 at the second. Kansas City is at minus 150 as well to win the AFC West. The Jacksonville Jaguars are at the same odds as the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs to win their division. I don't know what that says to you, but that says to me that this is such a crazy, crazy situation we find ourselves in. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what kind of bizarre world we're living on anymore, Ryan.
I think it just says how good Jacksonville was in the second half of last year. They played at a top 5 level, probably in the whole league. I mean, we touched on it. They won 7 out of 9, won a playoff game, gave Kansas City everything they could handle at Arrowhead. I know Mahomes was banged up, but Mahomes still played. I think you also saw it with Doug Pederson, year number 2 in Philly. Goes from around a 9-8 team. I think they were 8-8 his first year. They won the Super Bowl in his second year. They get Calvin Ridley off of the gambling suspension. So shout out to Calvin Ridley, another weapon for Trevor Lawrence. I think Jacksonville runs away with this. So I have no problem going minus 150 because I think that they're clearly the best team in this division. And we'll talk about some other futures I like with Jacksonville potentially. I think this is I'm going all the way, man. I think this is a AFC contender, Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I was going to say this is obviously, well, I mean, I'm going to say that at least the division. I'm not sure if I'm that high on them for the rest of it, but I do believe that this is a team that really does control their own destiny. And listen, it sometimes is hard to be successful because then you have to be successful again. Last season, no one was expecting anything out of them. So when they went on a 5-game tear to end the season, right? They won 5 straight. They were 5-0 over the last 5 games of the season. That was great for everybody. They were like, oh, wow, this is it. But now you did it. So now you got to do it again. So the question is, can Trevor Lawrence do it again? Can he ride that success? Can Travis Etienne do what he did? Can, like you said, Calvin Ridley now, there's Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. Can they put it all together? Can that defense continue to do good things for them as well? Like now the pressure's on. So it really is theirs to lose. We're going to learn a lot about this team to start the season and what they do to follow up on their success.
And the crazy thing is, it's only year number 3 of Trevor Lawrence. It feels like he's been in the league forever. He's only been 2 years. It's just that first year was such a dumpster fire with how dysfunctional Urban Meyer was. And then finally he got competent coaching. It took him a little bit there. I mean, he kind of was inconsistent in the first half of the year, bad turnovers. But like I said, that bye week hit, and then he was a completely different players. Finished his first year under Doug Pederson, throwing for over 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I mean, Pro Bowl level. I mean, he was an all-league guy last year. He just kind of gets overshadowed by the elite guys like Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. Well,
pretty soon, if he continues to do what he's been doing, he'll be in the conversation with at least a couple of those guys. Maybe not the Mahomes level quite yet, but maybe the Herbert level. Maybe you start to get him somewhere in that vicinity as well. So
he beat Herbert.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
We got to start talking about that in the conversation. It's who you beat, right? Who you continue to beat. So if he continues on that roll, we'll start bringing his name up in those conversations. Speaking of conversations, we get to have them with you each and every week, and we're happy about that. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you very much for doing so. Continue to do the things that make these YouTube videos possible. Like, subscribe, comment, tell your friends, put it on a doctor's office wall so that way when they're watching, they wonder what's going on and they go home and watch the NFL Gambling Podcast back at home and catch new episodes. I don't care how you do it. Spread the word. We'll continue to do this, and we'll continue to be very much appreciative of all of your efforts to help grow this show and the SGPN at large.
Hey Rod, real
Yes,
quick.
sir.
We've talked about every team in the division. We went through the Jaguars and we didn't even talk about where they're picking. That's how good a year they had last year, because we're used to always saying 1 or 2. They're picking 24. So I think we both can agree. Probably need a little bit of defense to sure up, get some more pass rushers or secure that back end of that secondary. But that just shows you how far Jacksonville's come in just a year under Doug Pederson. That we barely even talked about where they are in the draft, because they're a contender now, man.
I mean, we're not talking about which one of the running backs or receivers they're going to be taking, or if they were going to replace Trevor Lawrence at quarterback with one of those other top picks, right? Because that's I feel like that would have been the next natural progression. If they would have gotten another like 1 or 2 pick, it's like, do you still build around Trevor Lawrence? Like, what are you doing? Because at this point, the better players out there, right? We talk about it. CJ Stroud out there, Bryce Young, those guys. Like, you don't take them. When you already had a number 1 pick, do you? That's a weird situation to be in if you still continue to have this number 1 picks after 3 years,
If you're still picking number 1 after 3 years, probably your franchise quarterback isn't the guy.
That's probably a safe assumption. Completely. So, all right. Well, let's talk about some win totals, shall we? Let's move over and talk about the futures as far as win totals are concerned. Talked about the Texans. They're over under. Now, this is what I love about this number, right? It's set at 5.5. But either side is minus 110. So they're like, I don't know. But I feel like smashing the under on this because, again, I know, like we talked about, D'Amico Ryans is there. You want to play hard for a guy like that, but you're asking them to win 3 more games, really, than they won last season. And that's a hard road to hoe when you're just a complete and total mess at this point.
Yeah, I'm going under. I like they won 3 games last year, and I actually thought they played pretty well. Like, I thought that they battled. I know it's Lovie Smith. It's going to be year number 1, D'Amico Ryans. I think he's going to be more worried about his culture and doing things the right way, and I think he's just going to take it on the chin. I see 3-14 around that range.
Yeah, it's not. And remember they had a tie last year too. So even that tie would have just accounted for that. And you're, like I said, you're 5.5, like 4.5. I may be compelled to take the over on that. But if you're telling me that you need to get to 6 wins, I just don't see it. Because again, like we said, last season they were still in the division 3-2-1. So they were actually right around 500, if not just above 500 in the division. So they still have to play those guys more. And I'm not seeing them beating anybody else more than once this season.
Yeah, it's funny because they've always had Jacksonville's number, and they beat Jacksonville last year again. I think they swept them.
I believe you're right. I'm not looking at their exact schedule right now, but I believe you're right. So
yeah,
but I don't think that's happening again.
Yeah, no,
not this season. At the very least, they'll split it for sure. All right. The Indianapolis Colts are next. They are sitting at 6.5 in their win total. The over is juiced at minus 140. The under is at plus 115. 6.5 last season. What did they win? 4-12-1 was their record. Can they win 3 more games as well?
I don't see it. I with the uncertainty at the quarterback position, I think they're a 5-6 win team.
Tell me what they're basing it on, though. I really want to know what they're basing off of a 6.5 number. I mean,
yeah, maybe some positive regression, just better. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Maybe just because they had Jeff Saturday as coach for so long and it was just a complete joke. Maybe getting a competent coaching staff. Although Frank Reich was a good coach for years there in Indianapolis, and they just completely screwed him with that move with Jeff Saturday. And Matt Ryan was so bad. Maybe they're saying even a rookie quarterback, it can't get any worse. But still, I don't see a 3-game improvement.
Well, and the fact that the over is actually the favorite in this at minus 140, it really does make me scratch my head because I can't see him to get, maybe 6 wins. Maybe 6 is where they're at and that hook comes into play. But I mean, give me the under at plus money, right? I'm more apt to take the plus money side of this banking on the fact that they're not going to win 3 more games than they did last season.
Yeah, I just don't see it with the quarterback situation. That's my main reason why I don't think it could happen. Maybe if Minshew is the guy from day number 1, maybe they could get to 7-10, but I don't know. I'm gonna go under.
Yeah,
I usually like back in first year head coach unders.
Yeah, well, they only won 1 game within the division last season, so that goes to show you that they weren't good in the division as well. So definitely can't. I don't know. I don't know. I think you need to take advantage of that now, though, because that number, depending on the draft, may change too. I highly doubt it. I still probably think it's going to be 6-5, but grab it when you can. All right, the next one's a little bit tricky, right? Tennessee, they come in at 7.5. The over is at +110. The under is at -130. So under 7.5 is the favorite here. But they were 7-10 last season. So again, this is I said it's tricky. I didn't say it was easy. Can they win another game? Can they pick up another game? They were 3-5 at home, 4-5 on the road, 3-3 within the division, 5-7 within the conference. So can they pick up another win in there? That's who do they beat now?
I usually don't like backing teams that collapse the year before coming down the stretch. It seems to most of the time carry over into the next season. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go a third straight under in this division. I see 6-7 wins. I'm surprised that they're projecting Indianapolis and Tennessee kind of at the same win total, 7 wins. I mean, because you said the over was juiced for Indianapolis and then the under with Tennessee. So I see under. I think that Tennessee has overachieved for years and years, and I think last year they finally underachieved. I think it's another year of underachieving here.
It's definitely a tough call because, again, I mean, 8-9 doesn't seem like it's that out of the realm of possibility if we, like we said, get Tannehill another pass catcher, or, if like I said, if Tannehill decides that this is the year that he decides to step back up again and do things he needs to do to either get another job or keep his job in Tennessee. But this is it. If they don't get to at least 8 wins this season, you probably are going to see a complete rebuild of this team. And, again, it's crazy, but I don't know. I'm intrigued. At plus money on the over because, again, 8 feels like 1 extra win for them isn't as much of to ask than 3 wins for Indy or 3 wins for Houston. So I might be inclined to take this Tennessee over 7.5 at +110. In fact, you know what? Lock it in. I'll take 8-9 record for Tennessee next season. They're not.
There you go.
Get over 500, but they definitely will get over 7.5 wins.
I'm still staying under, and it'll get us to the next team,
which is, of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're over under. Man, they need to get 1 more win or 2 more wins rather to hit over this. Their number is set at 10.5, the over at +115, the under at -140. I don't feel like this was fair though, Ryan. I don't feel like it was fair the way they set this up, right? At 10, at 9, over 9.5 as the number, I feel like you could have juiced it differently, but they gave you 10.5, but they said, you know what, we're going to take the under and pretty much bait you to take this one.
I'm going over. I think this is my favorite one in this division. And like I said, I'm giving out 3 unders on the other teams. That means the win's got to come somewhere. I think Jacksonville continues that momentum of winning 8 out of 10 down the stretch, kind of like Philly did with year number 1 with Pederson, or Philly in year number 1 with Sirianni. They finished strong, got in the playoffs, got a taste of it, and then made their run to the Super Bowl last year. I see Jacksonville running away with this thing in the AFC South.
I do feel as if, yes, you're right, because they finished 9-8 last season, 5-3 on the road, at home rather, 4-5 on the road, 4-2 in the division, 8-4 in the conference, but they were 1-4 outside of the conference. So they need to pick up another win there. They need to pick up another win within the division. Which again, like you said, if you want unders for the rest of the division, that means that's at least 1 win. And look, they did kind of stumble out of the gates, right? They didn't get out to the hottest start last year. Well, now they've got success. Now they've proven that they can win games. Now they got to win early. right? They've got to be able to win early. They maybe pick up a couple of those wins early and get their way down to an 11-6 season for the Jaguars. I don't feel like it's completely out of the realm of possibility, especially given that they haven't gotten any worse, right? They definitely are the same team by and large as they went out of the season with last year. So I think I'll go with you on the over. I feel like 2 more wins is not difficult for Jacksonville to pick up, especially if we're talking about, Indianapolis not getting back to where they were, Houston maybe not winning a game against the Jags like they did last season. So I'm with you on Jacksonville over 10.5 for this one, especially at plus money. This one is definitely one that at plus money just seems like a really good deal.
Completely agree. Go Jags.
Go Jags. What? Who are we and what have we done with the rest of the NFL community? So, all right, that is the win totals. Ryan, is there anything else we need to cover for this AFC South? I feel like we've given this more attention than the AFC South has gotten in past history.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Draft week, man, I think we're going to see some more trades. These teams are going to be all over the draft. I mean, we touched on the bottom 3 teams, how they're all in the top 10, and the bottom 2 are in the top 4. So we'll stay tuned, see these other NFL division previews to see where we're leaning. And for Jacksonville, if you want to take a stab at the AFC, they are currently 14-1. And if you want to buy into the Super Bowl hype, 28-1.
Okay. You could buy into the Super Bowl hype. I don't know that I'm ready yet for it. I feel like they'll get to the playoffs. Absolutely. Did you talk about what they were to get to the playoffs? Hold on. Let me scroll that up. Jacksonville to make the playoffs is, I'm looking right now. I'm scrolling right now. HIJ.
Minus 190.
Minus 190 to make the playoffs. Wow. That's something, huh?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
The books like the Jags, man.
They love the Jags. Again, I don't know. That might be a little too juice for me. But I mean, look, you don't only pay the juice if you lose, as my buddy Cody Zeeb always says. So I don't think that's a losing bet. I feel like they will make the playoffs. Obviously, at 11 wins, it's hard to not make the playoffs at 11 wins, especially in the AFC South. So, all right. Well, again, keep tuned to the SGPN. We've got lots and lots and lots of draft coverage coming your way. Live drafts, mock drafts. Now with all this news about Aaron Rodgers, we're going to have to go back and redo our entire draft because guess what? The draft picks have swapped between the Jets and the Packers. So we got to figure out what that means for the rest of it. And yeah, who knows? Maybe the Texans trade out of that number 2 overall pick and figure out a way to get more draft picks. It's going to be crazy. I will tell you that right now, leading up to this draft. And the unexpected is going to happen, but we'll have you locked down for the entirety of it. And you can keep coming here for all your updates.
No doubt. And you can find me on Twitter at Moneyline_Mac. And hey, we'll be back tomorrow and Wednesday, all leading up to the draft. Draft week, baby.
Draft week, baby. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Link in the bio. Everything I got going on, whether it is here, the NASCAR Gambling Podcast. Check out my draft props article on the main site. Like Ryan said, we'll be back all week long. Draft week, baby. Got to get you all in for it. So until next time, we'll see you and let it ride.